Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Clayton, and I am a senior manager at MMP working out of our Cambridge office. MMP is a leading national accounting, tax, and business consulting firm in Canada. We proudly serve the response to the needs of our clients in the public, private, and non-for-profit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, we provide collaborative, cost-effective approaches of doing business and personalizing strategies to help organizations succeed across the country and around the world. This morning, I am pleased to welcome Frank Newman. Frank is a founder and CEO of Newman Human Resources Consulting, based out of Breslau, Ontario. Over 40 years, Frank has worked in the human resources to create a great working environment for the best people that want to come to work every day. His pioneering working for Compassionate Leave led to the creation of the Employment Insurance Compassion Leave Care Leave, which has been benefited through Canadians as they care for their families during critical illness. Frank and his team service clients that includes a variety of small and medium-sized businesses in the southwestern Ontario. He is a certified HR leader. Frank is an HR subject matter expert with the Launchpad at the Wilfrid Laurier University and a volunteer mentor for the Waterloo Region Small Business Center, an accomplished speaker and an HR leader. Frank has presented to many communities and industry groups, including a numerous Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Clubs. He also has appeared on CTV News and has been a frequent commentator of the human resource issues on 570 Radio Kitchener. Please help me welcome Frank.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. That was very, very kind of you to introduce me like that. What I'd like to do today is welcome you all to the session. Just going to share my screen here. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let's do this. Okay. Hopefully, someone can acknowledge if we can see. You can see the screen.
Yeah, Frank, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, everyone. It's a delight to be with you here today and talking about one of my favorite subjects, quietly quitting, or as I call this, Elvis has left the building. So we're going to cover a wide amount of material here today, and I hope you find it interesting and stimulating. So Maria has done a great job of introducing me. So just to let you know, my organization supports small businesses with a variety of HR services, from performance management to recruiting, compensation and benefits, and so on. So feel free to look me up later on. But I really wanted to just share knowledge with you today and give you some insights and tools to make your life and your company's life a little bit easier. So our objective today, so we're going to talk about standing on the precipice, because we are at this fascinating time in the world of work where we've seen so much change. We're going to talk about silent quitting, and I'll share with you the signs to watch in your organization for your people. I'll give you some tools and tips in terms of how to identify that. Also, we're going to talk about how to develop an action plan. And then I'm going to spend some time talking about what I call your best 10 minutes. And this is some tools and tips for you to be able to engage your employees every day, taking no more than 10 minutes. So something for you personally, for you as leaders, or for your business leaders in your organizations. So normally what I do with the presentations, I do a bit of a pulse check and say, how is everyone feeling? And This is an interesting time for business. We've got optimism in the workforce. We've got pessimism. We've got people who are exhausted, people who are anxious, people who are edgy. And so we come into these presentations with a mixed bag of feelings. And hopefully at the end of it, I can share with you some optimism as we move ahead. So, as I mentioned, we're standing on a precipice. We've seen more changes to the world of work than since the Industrial Revolution. I mean, who would have thought, 5 years ago, I would be talking to 40 people sitting at my home office, and you're in your offices or your homes or wherever you are. So the world has changed dramatically. And so there's great promises of innovation and technology to make our worlds easier. We have great expectations. We want more. We want to have more productive businesses. We want to have more engaged employees. But at the same time, there's also great risks because we know inflation is looming at us. We've got talent shortages, and there's a variety of things that are threatening our businesses and as well as our mental sanity in some cases. So I like to use this slide, and I call this, we're living in a world where we have a fragile society. We've been buffeted by COVID. We've been buffeted by business change. And as a result, society itself in the world of work and around us is very fragile. We react very quickly to things. And in some cases, we see people acting inappropriately or just overreacting. And so, everything we do in the world of work needs to be set in this context of understanding it is a fragile society. And so we need to do things to be able to support our people and ourselves as well, but understanding this is not the way it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago. Probably the most dramatic shift that many of you may be feeling and facing is the fact that we've now shifted from an employer's market where the employer drives everything, controls everything, to now we're in an employee's market. And they said this was coming at us, for many years, but no one really believed it. But now many of you are living that. And so there's a number of characteristics about this employees market. So first of all, the expectations for business have changed. And employees are definitely expecting much more than they were in the past from employers. They're looking for options to work from home. They're looking for more benefits. They've got more choice, so they're expecting more and more. We also have extreme agility in the workforce. So I call this the gig economy. We have lots of people who are now doing freelance work, whether it's in marketing or IT or consulting or whatever that is. So people have the option of different career paths, and they can create their own gigs as they do that. And again, that has an impact on you as an employer trying to find people. We also have people making career choices. We've seen a wide flood of people migrating from, say, non-essential industries to essential industries based on COVID. Industries like retail and restaurants and food industry have had challenges finding people because people are making choices to work in more essential industries. We also have the concept that people want to be employable versus employed. And to be employable, you make sure you keep up your skills in the workplace, you act professionally, you continue to learn, you continue to network, versus just being employed and staying in one job. Many of our parents stayed in one job or two jobs for many, many years. That's not the accepted norm now. People want to be employable, and so sometimes they're moving between companies. We also have what I call the age of the entrepreneur. Now for $3,000, you can create a website, you can create a business online and so on. So we've got more options, more drive for entrepreneurship. Inflation is certainly causing unrest for people as they look at their bank statements, they look at their pay statements. Inflation is fueling more movement. And the other thing is there are jobs everywhere. Last time I drove down Victoria Street in Kitchener, there must have been at least 10 help wanted signs. So this is the market that employers are facing as they look to find talent. And it's also reflected on what's happening inside your company because your staff are going to be feeling these issues. So when we think about the definition of quietly quitting, the first thing is this is not new. This has been there for centuries. And basically what it really means is that it's people who are clocking in and out on time. They're doing their assigned work. They're leaving on time. They're not taking on extra work. And so they're really they're doing the basics, and that's it. But an employee doing the basics is, say, worth 100%. But if you've got a top talented employee, that's worth 150%. So you're really sub-optimizing the talent in your organization if you have people who are quietly quitting. Now, I want to do a quick poll question. So as you think about your business, what's been the impact of quietly quitting on your business? So if you can go into the chat and mark 1 for low, 10 for high, and let's see what people are saying here. Okay, I can see the scale here. So we got some people. Okay. Give you a couple more minutes. Okay, this is good. It's very exciting. It's like a US election almost. So what's the impact? Okay. So I think I can end the poll. So what we're seeing is, we've now got, so what people have said is, for most people, it's somewhere, the bulk is somewhere between 13, I'll stop. So the poll has said we're somewhere between 9% to up to as high as 17% for some folks are saying it's significant impact. So clearly, this is something that we want to be able to manage and do more of to manage that. Okay, share the results. Okay. All right. So I think I can close the poll now. Okay. So what we're hearing is this has a significant impact. And so here's some statistics that have come up recently. And one of the most remarkable ones is, from the Gallup is saying, 21% of employees are engaged at work, which means you've got another 79 who are not engaged. 54% of Gen X workers are considered quitting. So again, that's an important group. And again, people are certainly looking more at different options. And the other piece I think is interesting is youth disillusionment is 8 of 10 as one of immediate risks. And the other piece we have is, in many cases, we have issues of deteriorating mental health in the workplace. And again, that also kind of reflects back on that whole concept of the fragile society. So clearly, there's a feeling that many people are disengaged. And so we do want to find ways to improve that. Okay, so the question is, so what can you do about it as a manager, business owner, HR professional, office manager? And so I come back to my early training as a child with Elmer the safety elephant, and what can you do about it? So I like to use the expression stop, look, and listen. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what that means. But basically, it's, first of all, is being aware of what's happening in your work environment. And again, being specific in terms of what can be done about it. So one of the key things is understanding how staff are feeling. And so there's a variety of ways to do that. And you can conduct informal or formal surveys. You can do, MailChimp surveys, if you like. But probably best to have things like some one-on-one discussion with people, some team discussions. You can look at your exit interviews. They often provide a lot of insight. Also to check, if you haven't done that, check Glassdoor. Glassdoor is a website that does reviews on businesses. And also, you can also check Indeed reviews, because there are reviews on Indeed for companies. So again, that may affect your reputation, or maybe even what your current employees are saying. But we don't want you to be afraid to ask, what's going on. So as part of this process, you may need to have some awkward discussion with people. And part of the discussion may simply start off by saying, lately I've noticed you seem a little disengaged. And often that phrase can help people, because again, we do want to refocus them back to high levels of performance. And often I'll ask staff, kind of what's working for you, what's not working for you. So you can make it as simple as that. And the idea is to be just open in terms of getting that feedback from them, because again, they will tell you more than you will ever know. But if you don't pay attention to them, you don't ask the question, you won't know. The other thing to think about as you look at your performers who are not performing, who are checked out, you want to be mindful of the fact that everyone is watching their performance. And so as a leader, you want to make sure that you are taking steps to manage performance. And if you don't do that, then you may see a further deterioration of your work environment. I like to use the phrase angels and vampires. So within your organization, you're going to have some people who are angels, and these are people whose work is absolutely remarkable, exemplary. You wish you had 1,000 of them. The same point, you may have some vampires in the organization, and vampires, if you know your Transylvanian history and so on, basically by daytime they look like normal average people. At night they become vampires. So the vampires in your organization, who may be those that are quietly quitting, are those that, as soon as you leave the room, they stop working, they start gossiping and so on, and they become more and more disengaged. And those vampires can have a dramatic impact on your working environment, because eventually, if they continue to exist and behave, then they will start to erode the quality of the work done by the angels, and you may even lose your angels. So despite the fact that we're in a tight economic time to find people, you still want to manage poor performers. And again, so it's coaching, but it may also be having to make some tough decisions, because if you have a mediocre performer, you could be giving up a spot that might be taken by an outstanding performer. So what are employees looking for in 2023? So I've got 2 slides, and let me just talk a little bit about what they're looking for. So the number one currency is time. And so people are looking very much for work flexibility. If assuming you're not in a factory environment, but certainly office workers are looking for flexibility, whether it's working from home or coming into the office 1 day a week or whatever that is. The other thing that we're seeing more and more is companies going to a 4-day work week. And that has a remarkable impact on the business. Now, again, you've got to look at your costing for that and so on. But certainly those are very attractive options. And I've had people turn down jobs because they didn't have some flexibility there. Time is the new currency. We can't continue to increase wages every single time there's a change in the consumer price index. And so to the extent that you can look at your time off policies, your vacation policies, your sick pay policies, those are all helpful for people, particularly on vacations. And so being a little bit creative there may give you an edge in the market over others. Community support. More and more people making decisions to join companies based on their corporate profile in terms of how whether they're working with a food bank or they're working with the Cancer Society or their Salvation Army. And so it's important for organizations to understand where you're contributing to society or community. And also what that does is it gives them a feeling of pride in the organization, because ultimately you want people to be proud of where they are working. On the compensation side, on the benefit side, we're seeing more of a push. If you don't have an RRSP or some sort of a contribution plan for an RSP, we're seeing that as raising in importance for people as we have a slightly older workforce. Contributions can typically, start, matching at 2%. The maximum I've seen is about 5%. So if you don't have those, you may be feeling some pressure from your employees to have those added to your benefits programs. The other thing that's really important is people want to know, what is my career when I join the company? So having career planning discussions, thinking about how you might cross-train someone, those are important, because people want to continue to learn and develop, and they want to see that there's a career beyond just the job that we have today. On the benefit side, the other piece that we've seen introduced in a lot of companies is employee assistance plans. And this is where employees can access reduced or free, psychological counseling, mental health counseling, legal counseling. This has become very, very popular for people. And certainly through the pandemic, this has increased quite a bit. And the costs are not extreme. They're, range from about $2 a month per employee. So again, might be something to look at if you're looking to make some changes there. And then the other thing that is becoming more important for people is their physical work environment. So making sure your office looks attractive, make sure things are painted, make sure even the front of the building is maintained, because again, all that contributes to that sense of pride and accomplishment and engagement with your company. So those are some of the trends you're going to be seeing employees asking about. So what you want to be doing then, as you're having your discussion with your employees, is you want to be starting to think about what's your engagement plan. So how do you address those key issues? And importantly, you want to make sure you support your managers and supervisors, because they're the ones that are dealing on a regular basis with your employees. And again, I call them the meat and the sandwich, because they're getting pressure from management, they're getting input from their employees, and they're trying to manage this. So make sure you really strongly support your managers and your supervisors. And throughout the process, you want to keep communicating regularly with staff around what's happening with the business, where are we heading, and so on. So the more you can share that information with them, the better it is. So in the event that you do have employees who are not only quietly quitting, but have actually decided to quit, a lot of my clients ask me, well, should I make a counteroffer? So we had a situation with an employee, one of my clients last week, where she got another offer for $5,000, but she said, well, I'd really rather stay here. And so we talked about it, and we actually did meet her counteroffer, and she stayed with the company because on balance, we looked at her profile and said, she's worth keeping. So counteroffers can be accepted if you want to try that, but you also want to make sure as you do that, that you address any underlying issues, because in some cases people accept a counteroffer, but they're still discontented, so they will still leave the company. And if you are making counteroffers, you want to make sure that people try and keep things as confidential as possible, because you don't want everyone coming back to you and saying, I need more money or I'm leaving. So there's some strategies to dealing with counteroffers. The other thing to think about too is recognizing that at some point everyone will leave your company. And regardless of how they leave, ideally you want them to leave the company as a fan of the company or as an ambassador. You don't want them to leave as critics, because as you know, if you have a bad experience in a retail setting, you'll tell 10 people. If you treated well, you'll tell 1 people. But so what we want to make sure is that treat people really well as they leave. Again, if they're leaving on good terms, don't isolate them, don't stop inviting them to meetings, treat them with respect, because ultimately it's a very small world. And as we know, ultimately everyone is connected. The other question for some companies is, do you let good people come back? And I've known companies that say, well, once you leave us, you're never coming back. And I think that's a mistake, because often what happens is people do choose other jobs. They decide to leave because the grass looks greener, but then they want to come back. And so I always encourage you, if they are good employees, have them come back. And I call them second bouncers. And often if they do come back, they're the greatest advocates for your company imaginable. So some tools and tips just in terms of how to deal with people leaving. But certainly most companies do not do a good job of supporting people as they leave the company. Clearly, if there's a performance issue, that's a different story. But if they leave for another job, support them, be appreciative, keep in touch with them, because again, they could be another source of talent down the road. So I'm going to switch gears here, and we're going to talk about your best 10 minutes. And this is my friend here who is trying to do everything possible at once. And so most of you have schedules exactly like this gentleman here. But I'm going to give you some tips in terms of how you can manage and create an engaged environment with a few simple actions. And so my challenge for you is, if you only had 10 minutes a day, how would you change your staff from indifferent? So these are the quietly quitting, to committed. So what can you do as a leader, or what can your team of leaders do to do that? So ultimately, as we talked about, what you want from your employees is you want 3 things. You want them to be productive, you want them to be committed, and you want them to have some passion for the business. And that really translates to having engaged employees. So here's a poll question for you guys. So why do people leave the business? And so I've got a number of, I don't know if we can pull the poll up for us. There we go. So, so what's the number one reason people leave the business? Is it pay? Is it working conditions? Is it the work is just plain boring? Is it company culture? Is it the boss? So let's see what people see here. I can see that's a race between boss and pay, boss and pay. Okay, okay, okay. Oh, it's neck and neck with pay and boss now. This is good. This is like a horse race. Okay, okay, okay. So I'm gonna end the poll. Okay, okay. So what we have, so this is very cool. So we have a complete draw between pay and boss, and the answer is generally it is actually the boss that has the most impact on that working relationship, because that's the person you come in to work for. The boss, you don't come to work for the company. So your supervisor, your leader is the most important in this environment. Pay is certainly important. Working conditions. What's interesting is nobody picked boring work, and one of the key things that they have found is that in terms of keeping people engaged, creating interesting work is one of the most powerful motivators for people, because nobody wants to do a boring job. So if you can create exciting work for people, they will come in, and that'll overrule money. With regard to compensation and pay, you want to make sure you're beating what we call the threshold results. There's the results of the score. You want to make sure you're meeting the hygiene factor, so your pay's got to be at the right level. And company culture is becoming more and more important, people, but probably not necessarily the reason they're leaving, unless it's because they've been bullied or they've been harassed. But certainly, as I say, we want to focus the next few minutes on talking about what you can do as a boss. So, okay, there we go. I'm going to close the survey down. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do is share with you the 5 C's of creative leadership. And I have developed these over many, many years, looking at successful employees and successful managers, as well as unsuccessful managers and employees as well. So let me take you through this and give you some insights. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So the first C is connect. And this is probably the most important thing you can do as a leader, as a manager with your staff. And by connect, I mean 2 things. I mean being physically present where you can, and that has being aware of who your people are, making the effort to connect with them, whether it's in person if they happen to be actually in the office, or even physically connecting with them by Zoom. That's very powerful as well. But in addition to that, you also want to be mentally present. So if you are going to have a conversation with an employee, you want to make sure that you pay full attention to them. And for many people, that is really important. And the fact that the boss cares about them, asked about their kids, asked about the soccer game or whatever that is, those are important points, and go beyond just the day-to-day work, but also the fact that you're connecting with them, you care about them, and sending a message is very, very powerful. So if you do nothing else through this whole process, just making sure you're connecting with people, even if it's whether it's a coffee or it's just walking past a machine and saying how is things going today, is really, really, really key. And I learned the value of that early in my career when I worked at a refinery, and the plant manager would walk around the refinery every morning for an hour, and people knew that he was there, and people knew they could talk to him, and he had a great reputation because he was just there. He would connect. So again, if you do nothing else from this presentation but start to connect with your employees in a variety of ways, that is the most important thing you can do. And so part of that connecting is letting people understand why work is important, and also what we're working towards. So again, as you connect with them, starting to share a little bit around what's the motivation behind the work we're doing. and letting them know that, it's important, what we do, how we do it, and so on. So again, sharing those messages, making sure that people are engaged with that. The second C is clarity. And I often say clarity is one of the most expensive words in the English language, because we've all seen times when we've been unclear about our role or our process or where we're going. And sometimes organizations just don't take the time to provide clarity. And so clarity can be a variety of things. First of all, it's what's important. So what's important in the way we work? Is it about customer service first? Is it teamwork? And then understanding what's not important. So perhaps it's not important for us to be writing reports or sending emails or so on. And so it's important to understand what's valued in the culture. And the one question employees ask me as they join organizations where I work or support is, what does it mean to be successful here? So is this a competitive environment? Is this a coaching environment? Is this a team environment? So taking time to make sure everyone understands what's important and what does it mean to be successful here. It's surprising how much you will get out of that. But a lot of organizations do struggle with, for example, even clarity on, what's my job? Do I have a job description? How do I report? How do I escalate issues? So taking the time to unwrap or uncover those tricky areas, but where we don't have clarity, people make mistakes, people have different expectations about roles, and we get more interpersonal conflict as well. So making sure your organization takes time to clarify things where possible. The other C is around coaching. And so for many years, managers were taught to direct staff and tell them this is what you do and this is how you do it. So managers were really in the driver's seat. And over the years, they've recognized that managers really are more effective when they are coaching people. And the idea of coaching people is very much like, as my colleague Steph says there, instead of giving them the fish, teach them how to use the hooks. And so what we want to do is have coaching discussions with staff, which really take them from directing them to allowing them to create their own solutions. And I have a very, very simple model that I use. And basically the conversation is the three circles here. It starts off with, how can I help? So as your manager, how can I help you? What can we do to fix this? So again, moving it from what can you do to help them to how can you work jointly to fix it? And then ultimately what you want to do is ask them the question, what will you do? Because you want them to take accountability. You want to recognize that you want them to recognize you use your brain power, and also you want them to create the solution. So where possible, where you're having those issues with staff, try this three-circle coaching model. It's remarkably powerful and can lead to a lot of success. And again, people are looking for this. So as you're connecting with them, use these conversations for coaching. I have seen more organizations, more people's careers ruined because of a lack of courage. And courage is tough when it's probably one of the most challenging things of being a leader. But it really does make a difference and really builds on clarity and connecting. But courage can often be is providing honest feedback for staff. So are people performing well? Is there stuff they can do better? People the honest feedback, because people do crave that. But to be honest, it takes courage to tell that disruptive employee that, by the way, they're not performing well. It takes courage to make those, to give that honest feedback, or to say to somebody, no, you're never going to be a supervisor. You're just not, you don't have the skills. So making that time to give honest feedback is so valuable and makes for great managers. And certainly anytime I've had feedback, it's been very powerful for me. And I remember early in my career, somebody gave me some feedback and said, Frank, you're the most arrogant person I've ever met, and I'm not going to give you the promotion. And I was astounded by that. And it really made me rethink the way I communicated with people. And I learned a lot, but I treasure the fact that he gave me that very blunt feedback early in my career. The other thing we have to do as managers and leaders is to make tough decisions. And to be honest, one of the toughest decisions is to let an employee go. But I've seen too many organizations where managers have tolerated poor performance. They've allowed things to go on for a long time and not made the tough decisions. And that has a real impact on the workplace. And again, a poor workplace will encourage more people to quietly quit because they don't think people care. So, look at your challenging staff issues and make the tough decisions. The other courage that I encourage people to look at is confronting your own limitations. As managers and leaders, we know that we're not perfect, and so for us, it's important to acknowledge the fact that we're not as good at this as we could be, and to be honest with ourselves and to ask that feedback. So again, think of the times that you've been courageous and been rewarded for that, and then think about the times when you could have been more courageous and what might have happened. The next one is compassion, and particularly during COVID, we've seen lots of people struggling with all kinds of issues and challenges and so on. And, as leaders, we want to make sure that we are seen as being human. We absolutely are, flawed. We have our moments of greatness, our moments of weakness. But the key thing as a leader is to be authentic and to be yourself. And that goes a long way. And I've had, managers who have been open with staff and have got lots of support from them for that. And what you need to do is make sure you understand what motivates people. By expressing compassion, people will confide in you. And also understanding, will I bend the rules occasionally? So if I have an employee with a tough issue, am I willing to bend the sick policy or the vacation policy or whatever that is? This is not such a black and white world that we live in now. So to the extent that you can use your compassion mindset, goes a long way. And anytime you do go over and above for somebody, they will remember that for a long time, because we are emotional animals and we will connect on the basis of compassion. So finally, I just want to start to wrap this up by saying, as a leader, you need to be conscious of your role every single day. Whether you walk out to the plant, whether you send an email, people are watching. And, I call this the shadow of the leader. So at whatever you do, your shadow will cover people and people will work within your shadow. So you want to make sure that you are constantly aware of your status as a leader. Play that role, and you can never turn off. As soon as you step out in the office, you are, quote, on stage as a leader. So be conscious of that. And again, you can use some of these principles to enhance your leadership presence and your ability. So these are as I mentioned, these are the 5 C's. And I really do believe they make a difference and will help you to attract and retain employees. It's pretty hard to be silently quitting if you have a leader or an organization that practices these key principles. And what you'll also find is people will stay for a much longer period of time. So again, we also want to be able to attract people, but retain them, and also inspire them to higher levels of performance. So at this point, I guess I'd just like to do a quick poll just to see from your perspectives, what have you been doing in your organizations to keep people engaged or to deal with silent quitting?
So Frank, they can write their answers in the chat for this question. Perfect. And Frank, there is a question in the Q&A if you want to take a look at that as well.
Yes. Okay. Oh, what does youth disillusionment mean? Perfect. Great question. What that really refers to is that often by youth, I guess we're talking about those that are probably in about the 14 to 18 degree age category. And what we're finding is that for many of them, there's a bit of a sense of a lack of hope. And they're seeing the turmoil in the world. They're seeing conflict, obviously the Ukraine conflict. They're seeing climate change and so on, and so they're becoming disillusioned with the status quo in terms of, what is my expectations? Will I ever be able to afford a house? If I have a house and I have kids, are they going to suffer from climate change? So basically, it really, is that they're becoming turned off, they're becoming disillusioned. If they get a job, they may just not feel excited and motivated to work. So hopefully that answers that question. And so again, thinking about, that's kind of a societal issue, but obviously then if you do have, if you're hiring students to work in a restaurant or whatever, it's important to be aware of that, and also to make sure that they feel supported, with some potential growth or opportunities. Very good. So is there, I can't see the chat at this point.
I haven't gotten any responses to that poll question yet, Frank.
Okay. Yeah, yes, Sarah.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi there. My chat is disabled, and I think probably other people's are as well.
Oh.
Well,
okay.
Thank you for letting me know.
I see there's another question here. Oh yeah, chat is disabled. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Yes.
Thank you. I will look into that.
Yes,
if you want to raise your hand, and we can do it that way instead.
That would work as well, yes. Oh yes, Sarah, why don't we go to you first? I see your hand is raised.
So one of the things we did with COVID is we actually went fully remote with our workplace. And surprisingly, to my shock, we've actually found a higher productivity. I know that's not typical. And we've actually chosen to remain a virtual workplace for now. So I'm wondering how successful you've noted that to be.
That's really remarkable, Sarah. In fact, a lot of my clients have experienced similar type things, and certainly the productivity has, if you put the right tools in, you can achieve that. And so companies have been very successful, and I think you're probably going to find it easier to recruit people, because certainly I've had people turn down offers where they haven't been able to work from home. Part of your success, and I suspect you've done this, is just making sure you've got a regular way to communicate actively with staff. You're kind of managing hours, and also you're finding you may need to find some ways to keep people engaged, whether it's one of my clients has what's called a quarantini. So once a month, they all get everyone together on Zoom for a mythical beer or something. But the challenge maybe over time is, how do you continue to support your corporate culture? Because there's a lot of, you miss the water cooler conversation that. So hats off to you guys for continuing that, and your project. That's great. You just have to kind of watch that you don't lose the essence of your culture as part of that. So, and you may be doing some stuff already to manage that. So, but no, well done. And again, obviously there's benefits to having people working from home as well. Great. Oh, I see Denise has a question. Denise, good to speak to you again. I don't know if you could turn on your microphone, Denise. Okay. Okay, chat. Okay, chat is working now. Okay, that's good. Okay. Now I can only see, I can't, oh, there we go. All right. See, Denise has her hand up. That's to unmute.
She doesn't have a question, Frank.
Oh, okay. Very good. Okay. Chat. Okay, great. Very good. Yeah, and some of my clients have moved to just some other tools and tips. Some of my clients have moved to a 4-day work week. That has gone over extremely well. Okay, and Mike's just commented, he has a 10-minute virtual meeting through COVID worked very well. Yeah, I think that's great, Mike. It's really about having that regular rhythm so that people know, they can reach out to Mike, they know it's predictable. And that has certainly helped to kind of knit people together, which is quite important in these times. Part of the challenge is to make it exciting, and whether you interject some fun in those meetings periodically. I've had people, do things where they say it's Friday is hat day, or bring your cat to work day, and so on. So we've seen lots of things like that. So again, if you can create some excitement with that as well, but I think that touch point is really, really smart, Mike. And again, how do you keep the momentum up there? And part of the challenge with working from home has been, we've had lots of new employees have joined organizations virtually through the season. And so it's important to make sure that you keep them engaged and get to know their people. Steve, I see you've got a question there.
More of a comment than a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I just sort of turn this around a little tiny bit. And although what we say certainly matters an awful lot, particularly in certain situations, but something that I've come across quite a bit in the last couple of years is talk is cheap. So you can talk up a great story, but if you're not good for it, then people pick up on that insincerity very quickly, and it erodes the working relationship. So you always have to be mindful of what you say, but it's much more important to consider what you're actually doing, because that's where the meat and potatoes of building a relationship is at.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, and you're right. It's not about the corporate slogan on the wall, but it's about what you do. And again, the definition of a culture is not, as I say, the slogan on the wall, but it's the accepted values and behavior. So it's fine for us to say that we have a tolerant workplace, or but again, if you don't actually live those values, that's going to make a difference, and that's going to become obvious at some point to people as well. Yes. Yeah. So question on the best 10 minutes a day. Yes. So yeah, the idea behind the best 10 minutes principle is the fact that if you've just got the 10 minutes a day, use those techniques to engage with employees. So again, whether it's the first 10 minutes of your day, you make a point to have a quick walk around the office, or you make a point to connect with Mary, who's just come back from maternity leave. And again, by building that 10 minutes of connection, or the 5 C's into your day, you can really have an impact. And again, it's cumulative, because if you invest that 10 minutes a day over a year, that's 3,000 minutes. So use those wisely. And what I often do is I'll have a checklist, and I'll have the 5 C's there, and I'll say, okay, did I connect with someone? Did I clarify something? Was I compassionate today? Did I make a courageous decision? So it's a useful way of just keeping a check on yourself. And by doing that on a regular basis, you establish your persona as a leader, as a manager, and you don't get surprised. And it's pretty hard if you're connected with your employees. It's pretty hard for them to surprise you. And also, the more you're connected, the more they will open up and talk to you, and are less likely to be disengaged. Some of the trends we've seen, so in terms of watching for people who are silently quitting, what you may see is a number of things. You may see them obviously leaving the office right on time. You may see them not volunteering for things. Maybe in the past they volunteered. So you want to be mindful for type of actions which represent a change in behavior, particularly if those are your stronger employees, because you've already invested a lot of time and energy in supporting them. So you want to make sure you pay particular attention to that, because part of this is about retaining your good employees, but it's also about then if you retain your best employees, then how do you motivate them to higher levels of performance? Very good. Are there any other questions at this point in time? Okay, great. Okay, well, whoops. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I appreciate spending some time with us on a rather cold, blustery Thursday. As I say, these are challenging times, and as leaders, we need to do everything we can to be able to retain, attract, and motivate our staff to higher levels of performance. Some of that comes with changing our organization, but some of it, in some cases, comes with how do we change our behaviors? How do we become more effective as managers? Because we know that ultimately, the buck stops with us. And so our leadership style will have more impact than we can ever imagine. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank MMP for sponsoring this and for the Chamber for providing us with this great facilities. This presentation will be available on the Chamber YouTube channel, and please feel free to share it with anyone that you think may be interested. I'll turn it back over to the Chamber.
Thank you very much, Frank, for your hour with us. I just want to let everyone know that our next business growth series is scheduled for Thursday, January 12th, and it will be TikTok Basics for Business. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, everyone. Be safe. Take care. Keep warm.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.